Coffee was humanity's secret weapon. Not the beverage itself, though the Galactic Medical Association's cafeteria on Esculapia Station did serve an exceptional dark roast, but rather what it represented: the uniquely human capacity to transform caffeine into solutions for impossible problems. Commander Elena Park stood at the vast observation window of the GMA headquarters, watching as the USHS Aegis and its support vessels glided into dock with the elegant precision that had become the hallmark of Earth's interstellar medical fleet. The iridescent hulls of the hospital ships caught the light of the nearby star, their surfaces shifting from a soothing azure to a calming lavender as they moved. The effect was intentional, designed to provide psychological comfort to patients of all species, a visual promise of healing and care. "Beautiful, aren't they?" The voice belonged to Dr. Malik Rao, who had joined her silently at the window. The chief xenobiologist from the Aegis was nursing his own cup of coffee, the steam fogging his glasses slightly. 17 minutes ahead of schedule," Park noted with satisfaction. "Which means we'll be ready to depart for the Samara system by Oro 600 tomorrow." Rao grimaced. "The nanovirus outbreak? Reports say it's spreading faster than anticipated. The local facilities are overwhelmed." "Vorxian border territory," Rao observed cautiously. "Their patrols have been assertive lately." Park's reflection in the glass hardened slightly. "We're a medical vessel with full Galactic Council clearance. Even the Vorxians respect medical neutrality." "Officially," Rao murmured into his coffee. Park turned from the window. At 42, she carried herself with the focused intensity that had propelled her from a field surgeon during Earth's resource wars to commander of humanity's most advanced interstellar medical operation. Her close-cropped salt-and-pepper hair framed a face that could shift from compassionate to calculating in the space of a heartbeat. "Malik, I've read your latest report on Vorxian physiology. Fascinating work on their tertiary circulatory system." "Thank you, Commander. Though I suspect you're going somewhere with this." Park's smile was thin. "The Vorxian Imperium may be expansionist, militaristic, and chronically unpleasant at diplomatic functions, but they're not stupid. Attacking a clearly marked medical vessel would bring the full diplomatic and economic might of the Galactic Council down on their three-lobed heads." "In theory." "In reality," Park corrected. "The galaxy runs on bureaucracy, Dr. Rao. Forms filed in triplicate protocols observed, committees convened. It's not exciting, but it works." "You sound like you almost believe that," Rao said with a slight smile. Park's wristcom chimed, displaying a message that made her straighten. "The Interim Medical Ethics Committee needs my sign-off on the Samara mission parameters." She drained her coffee in a single, practiced motion. "You'll be joining the primary response team." "Wouldn't miss it. There's a fascinating microbiological puzzle at work in this nanovirus. It's almost elegant how it—" "Save it for the mission briefing, Doctor. Euro 500 tomorrow." Park handed him her empty cup. "And bring more coffee. We're going to need it." As she strode away, Rao looked back at the gleaming hospital fleet. The USHS Aegis, nearly 2 kilometers of medical laboratories, trauma centers, quarantine facilities, and research spaces, represented humanity's greatest contribution to galactic medicine. Humans might be the newcomers to the interstellar community, but they had quickly earned respect for their medical ingenuity, efficient crisis response, and ability to work ridiculous hours, fueled by nothing but caffeine and determination. What worried Rao wasn't the mission itself, but the brewing political tensions. The Vorxian Imperium had been making increasingly aggressive territorial claims near Samara 7th. Still, even Vorxians wouldn't dare violate the one universal constant in galactic politics: medical vessels were sacrosanct. He hoped. The USHS Aegis dropped out of its final wormhole jump, precisely on schedule, materializing in the Samara system, amid a small constellation of support vessels. The massive hospital ship immediately began deploying its preliminary diagnostic drones toward the affected colony, while the medical preparation teams finalized their protocols. Commander Park stood on the Aegis command deck, reviewing the incoming data with growing concern. Infection rate is 30% higher than projections. Dr. Rao, what are we looking at? Rao frowned at his screens. The nanovirus is mutating faster than we anticipated. It's targeting neurological systems now, not just respiratory. We'll need to adjust our treatment protocols. Estimated casualties without intervention. Total population collapse within 17 days. Park nodded grimly. Commence full deployment. All medical teams to emergency stations. I want treatment centers established planetside within the hour. The methodical chaos of a human medical emergency response unfolded with practiced precision. Shuttle bays disgorged specialized medical craft, while the Aegis itself moved into optimal low orbit for its primary transporters. Commander, the communications officer called, we're getting unusual readings from the system's outer boundary. Specify. Possible cloaked vessel. Sensor profile consistent with Vorxian design. Park frowned. Hail them. Standard diplomatic protocol. No response. Send our medical mission clearance codes on all frequencies. Transmitting. Still no response. Park shared a glance with Rao across the command deck. Raise shields medical protocol only. Continue deployment operations. Medical protocol shields were the standard defensive measure for hospital ships designed to protect patients from environmental hazards or contagions, not military strikes. They would do little against weapons fire, but raising full combat shields would violate the Aegis non-combatant status. Incoming. The tactical officer barely got the word out before the ship shuddered violently. Report. Park demanded, steadying herself against a console. Direct hit port medical bay, shield penetration, Vorxian phase cannons. Park's face went cold. Evacuation protocol. Get all patients to the emergency transporters. Alert all support vessels to receive casualties. They're firing again. The second impact was worse, throwing several crew members to the deck. Warning klaxons blared as compartments began to decompress. All hands evacuation protocol. Park's voice remained steady despite the chaos. This is not a drill. All patients to emergency transport zones. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. The next minutes passed in a blur of emergency procedures, flashing lights, and the controlled panic of medical professionals fighting to save their patients. The Aegis automated systems worked remarkably well under fire, transporting most patients safely to support vessels before they could be endangered. But not all of them. When the attack finally ceased, the USHS Aegis hung in space, gravely wounded. Nearly 30% of its structure was compromised with massive hull breaches across its medical sections. The attacking vessel had disappeared as quickly as it had come, slipping back into whatever cloaking technology had concealed it. The casualty reports began flowing in. 90% of patients successfully evacuated. 85% of crew accounted for. Dozens confirmed dead, more missing. Park stood in the emergency command center of their largest support vessel, her uniform still smeared with blood from helping evacuate a critical care ward. Her expression was beyond anger, beyond grief. It was the cold, focused determination of someone who had made a decision from which they would not retreat. They targeted the primary care facilities first, Rao said quietly, looking at the damage schematics. They knew exactly where our most vulnerable patients would be. It wasn't random. Park's voice was flat. She tapped a command into the console, bringing up a data stream. We managed to capture some of their targeting data during the attack. This wasn't an impulsive strike or a territorial mistake. What was it then? A test. Park enlarged a section of encrypted Vorxian tactical code. They were probing our medical defenses. The translation reads, Assessment of Human Medical Vessel Resilience and Response Protocols. Rao stared at her. They deliberately attacked a hospital ship for research. Apparently the Vorxians consider medical capabilities a strategic vulnerability to be exploited. Park's eyes were hard. We're filing a formal protest with the Galactic Council, of course. Of course, Rao echoed, knowing exactly how little that would accomplish. The Galactic Council was notorious for its procedural delays and toothless resolutions. In the meantime, Park continued, We have a nanovirus outbreak to contain. The mission continues, Dr. Rao. Commander, Rao hesitated. What are we going to do about this attack? Park looked at him, her expression unreadable. File the appropriate paperwork, Doctor. What else? But there was something in her tone that made Rao suspect that form filing was merely the beginning. The Galactic Council convened 3 weeks later in its vast, overly ornate chamber on New Geneva Station. Representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations gathered to hear Earth's formal complaint against the Vorxian Imperium. The proceedings were as tedious as they were predictable. And so we must conclude that while the incident is deeply regrettable, there is insufficient evidence to assign definitive blame, droned the Teresian representative, whose species was known for its diplomatic verbosity and Vorxian trade agreements. Commander Park sat stiffly in the human delegation section, her face a perfect mask of professional attentiveness, despite the farce unfolding before her. Beside her, Ambassador Reyes struggled to contain his frustration. Insufficient evidence, Reyes challenged when it was finally Earth's turn to respond. We have provided sensor logs targeting data weapons signatures and casualty reports. 27 patients and 42 medical personnel died in an unprovoked attack on a clearly marked hospital ship with full council clearance. The Vorxian representative, a tall, three-eyed being with grayish-purple skin and an ornate military uniform, responded with practiced indifference. The human evidence is circumstantial at best, falsified at worst, he stated. If a Vorxian vessel was in the area, it was merely observing. Perhaps the humans experienced a catastrophic system failure and are seeking to assign blame rather than accept their technological inadequacies. Ambassador Reyes began to sputter a reply, but Park placed a restraining hand on his arm. She leaned forward to the microphone. The Vorxian representative suggests we may have experienced a system failure, she said, her voice perfectly calm. An interesting theory. One might wonder if the Vorxian medical fleet could experience similar failures. The Vorxian representative's third eye narrowed slightly, the only indication that the barb had landed. Is that a threat, Commander? Simply an observation on the nature of complex systems, Representative. They require constant maintenance, regular updates, careful oversight. Park offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Much like diplomatic relations. The council chair quickly intervened, steering the discussion back to procedural matters. A committee would be formed. Evidence would be evaluated. Experts would be consulted. In 6 standard months, perhaps, preliminary findings might be presented. As the session adjourned, the Vorxian representative approached Park in the antechamber. A word, Commander. Of course, Representative Koravex. The Vorxian towered over her, all 3 eyes regarding her with calculated menace. Your performance in the council chamber was noted. The Imperium does not respond well to veiled threats. Nor does Earth respond well to attacks on its medical vessels, Park replied evenly. Yet, here we are having a civilized conversation. Let me be clear, human. The Vorxian Imperium has studied your species extensively. You are physically unimpressive, technologically derivative, and strategically naive. Your only notable trait is your unusual medical expertise, which you squander on lesser species rather than using for proper advantage. That's rather the point of medicine, Representative. The Vorxian leaned closer. Listen carefully. If you pursue this matter further, the Aegis incident will seem minor in comparison to what follows. The Council cannot protect you, and your species is not prepared for true conflict with the Imperium. Park regarded him with perfect composure. Duly noted, Representative. If you'll excuse me, I have forms to file. As she walked away, Park activated her secure communicator. Operation Scalpel is approved, she said quietly. Begin Phase 1 preparations. Back on Esculapia Station, a classified team was already assembling. Medical professionals who had specialized combat training during Earth's resource wars. Software engineers who had developed the Aegis's advanced diagnostic systems. Xenobiologists with intimate knowledge of Vorxian physiology. One by one, they gathered in a secure conference room where Commander Park's message awaited them. They violated medical neutrality. We will enforce it, with precision. Operation Scalpel took shape over the following weeks, planned with the meticulous attention to detail that characterized human medical procedures. It would unfold in 4 carefully orchestrated phases, each building upon the last with surgical precision. Park assembled her core team. Dr. Malik Rao would lead the xenobiology aspects, ensuring their approach would be effective against Vorxian systems, without causing permanent harm. Admiral Sophia Nguyen, a veteran of both military operations and medical logistics, would coordinate the tactical elements. And Josephine Winters, Earth's preeminent medical systems engineer, would handle the most crucial technical aspects. To be absolutely clear, Park told them during their first full briefing, "We are not engaging in military action. We are conducting a medical intervention. The Vorxian Imperium has demonstrated a dangerous ethical infection that requires treatment." "Some might call this retaliation," Admiral Nguyen observed. "Some might," Park acknowledged. "I call it preventative care. If the Vorxians believe medical vessels are legitimate targets, that belief will spread like a contagion throughout the galaxy. We're simply administering an inoculation against that dangerous idea." Winters reviewed the technical schematics on her tablet. The Vorxian medical fleet uses a standardized operating system across all facilities. It's actually based on an early human design that they've modified. That gives us our access point. Speaking of access, Rao added, "We've identified 16 critical nodes in their medical network. Their security is impressive but fundamentally flawed. They've optimized for repelling external attacks, while leaving internal update channels relatively unguarded." "Typical Vorxian thinking," Nguyen commented. "Always looking outward for threats, never inward." "The key," Park emphasized, "is that no patients are harmed. This operation must be conducted with the same precision and care we would use in treating a difficult case. The Vorxians themselves will not be injured, only their capacity to provide medical services will be temporarily suspended." "And that accomplishes what exactly?" Nguyen asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Park's expression was resolute. "It demonstrates exactly what's at stake when medical neutrality is violated. The Vorxians chose to target our ability to save lives. We will respond by targeting theirs, but unlike them, we'll provide a clear treatment plan for recovery." The preparations advanced methodically. Wormhole beacons were carefully recalibrated to allow for rapid transit to key positions around Vorxian space. Medical frigates were quietly repositioned under the guise of routine patrols. Software packages were prepared and disguised as standard medical database updates, the kind routinely shared among galactic civilizations to combat new diseases. Earth's diplomatic corps received classified orders to recall all human envoys from Vorxian worlds. The official explanation cited facility maintenance back on Earth, a bureaucratic excuse so mundane that it raised no alarms. When the Galactic Council inquired about the unusual movement of human medical vessels, they received a 37-page report detailing a new preventative deployment strategy, complete with statistical appendices and proposed committee reviews. The document was so comprehensively dull that not even the most dedicated council functionary could finish reading it. The Vorxians, meanwhile, interpreted the human diplomatic withdrawal as a sign of weakness, a retreat in the face of their superior stance in the council. Their third eyes, evolved to detect threats, failed to recognize the danger in humanity's methodical preparations. 3 months after the attack on the Aegis Operation Scalpel began, Phase 1, designated injection, commenced with the transmission of what appeared to be routine software updates to the Galactic Medical Database. These updates contained specialized diagnostic protocol improvements for a range of species, including Vorxians. Given their standard practice of automatically incorporating such updates, the Vorxian medical fleet systems readily accepted the incoming data packages. Injection complete. Winters confirmed monitoring the deployment from the Secure Operations Center on Aesculapia Station. Uptake at 97% across all Vorxian medical facilities. And the remaining 3%, Park inquired. They're isolated military medical ships as expected. We have alternative delivery methods prepared for those. Park nodded. Proceed to Phase 2. Distribution was the designation for the second phase, in which the injected code would spread throughout the Vorxian medical network. For 72 hours, nothing appeared to happen. The hidden packages remained dormant, passing undetected through the Vorxian security protocols as they positioned themselves within critical systems. Then, at precisely 0300 Universal Standard Time, every diagnostic display in every Vorxian medical facility began to malfunction simultaneously. Vital sign monitors showed readings in untranslatable symbolic script. Medication dispensers recalibrated to non-functional settings. Life support systems continued operating, but replaced their standard auditory alerts with human lounge jazz. The effect was not dangerous. Patients remained stable, emergency backup systems engaged properly. But the Vorxian medical fleet had effectively been rendered non-operational without a single shot fired. Across Vorxian space, medical administrators frantically attempted system restarts, manual overrides, and isolated operations, all to no avail. The humans had learned from their own medical history. The treatment was designed to be comprehensive. Phase 3. Isolation commenced 12 hours later. Human medical vessels emerged from wormhole jumps at key positions surrounding Vorxian space. Using technology adapted from gravitational surgical fields, they deployed microgravity containment zones around each Vorxian medical ship, effectively immobilizing them without causing any hull damage or endangering personnel. The Vorxian military responded predictably, dispatching battlecruisers to confront the human vessels. They found themselves facing unarmed hospital ships with full Galactic Council identification beacons, active, conducting what their transponders described as emergency medical exercises. The human vessels made no threatening moves and responded to all communications with courteous medical jargon and offers of assistance. Attacking them would constitute a clear violation of galactic law that not even the Vorxian propaganda ministry could explain away. The military vessels were reduced to maintaining position, watching helplessly as their medical fleet hung immobilized in space. The final phase, stabilization, began with a galaxy-wide transmission from Admiral Sophia Nguyen, standing on the command deck of the newly rebuilt USHS Aegis. Attention representatives of the Vorxian Imperium and the Galactic Council. She began her expression solemn. This is Admiral Sophia Nguyen of Earth's Medical Emergency Response Division. We are currently responding to a critical ethical systems failure throughout the Vorxian medical network. Our analysis indicates a catastrophic breakdown in medical neutrality protocols that poses an imminent danger to patients throughout this sector. She continued with perfect professional calm. In accordance with Galactic Medical Code Section 47.3, Earth has implemented emergency stabilization measures. The Vorxian medical fleet is currently in induced operational stasis to prevent further ethical contamination. This is not an attack or military action, but a necessary medical intervention. The transmission cut to Commander Park, who stood before a wall of scrolling medical data. We have prepared comprehensive treatment protocols for each affected facility, she explained, as if discussing a particularly challenging viral outbreak. These will be implemented systematically once the Vorxian Imperium formally recommits to the principles of medical neutrality under galactic oversight. The final image showed Dr. Rao in a laboratory setting, surrounded by Vorxian medical texts and anatomical displays. We preserve life, he stated simply. All life. That principle is non-negotiable. The transmission ended with a scrolling list of every patient and medical staff member who had died in the attack on the Aegis, their names displayed in both human and Vorxian script. The Vorxian Imperium's response was immediate and panicked. Their entire medical infrastructure, from orbital superhospitals to planetary clinics, to field medic units, had been neutralized without a single casualty. Patients were stable, but could not be properly diagnosed or treated beyond basic care. New medical emergencies had nowhere to go. Within hours, the Galactic Council chamber filled with frantic representatives. The Vorxian delegation arrived, first demanding immediate intervention against human aggression. But they found little sympathy among the assembled species. "Let me understand correctly," the Endarian representative said slowly. "You are upset because your medical capabilities have been temporarily suspended without harm to any patients, after you physically attacked a human hospital ship, killing patients and medical personnel." "The comparison is inappropriate," the Vorxian representative sputtered. "We are an imperium, our medical sovereignty is exactly as sacred as Earth's," interrupted the Tellurian ambassador, whose species had benefited from human medical intervention during a plague 3 years earlier. Or any other civilizations. The debate raged for hours, but the political calculus had shifted decisively. The humans had responded to a lethal attack with a non-lethal but devastatingly effective countermeasure. They had proved themselves both more ethically restrained and more tactically creative than the Vorxians had anticipated. Meanwhile, Commander Park and her team had assembled an encyclopedic document that was being distributed to all council members. It contained detailed treatment summaries for each Vorxian medical facility, describing precisely what systems had been affected and what ethical overhaul protocols would be necessary to restore functionality. The requirements were extensive, mandatory neutrality treaties, to be ratified by the Vorxian government, permanent galactic medical ethics observers stationed at all major Vorxian facilities, regular compliance audits, and a substantial reparation fund for the families of those killed aboard the Aegis. "This is extortion," the Vorxian representative declared. "This is treatment," Park corrected calmly. "The Vorxian medical fleet is suffering from an acute ethical deficit that, left untreated, poses a grave threat to galactic medical standards. We're simply providing the necessary intervention. And if we refuse your treatment—" Park sipped her coffee before answering. "Then, your medical fleet remains in its current state of induced stasis, indefinitely. The Galactic Medical Ethics Board will establish a long-term care protocol for Vorxian patients, likely involving relocation to facilities operated by other species." The implications were clear. The Vorxian Imperium, which prided itself on self-sufficiency and technological prowess, would become dependent on the medical capabilities of those they considered inferiors. Their citizens would witness this humiliation daily. Their military advantage would erode as resources were diverted to medical workarounds. 3 days later, the Vorxian government began signing the required agreements. The restoration of the Vorxian medical fleet proceeded methodically over the following weeks. Facility by facility, system by system, the humans released their hold only after each compliance measure was verified and each ethical protocol implemented. Galactic medical ethics observers took up their positions throughout Vorxian territory, their authority backed by unprecedented council consensus. Commander Park personally oversaw the final restoration of the Vorxian Central Medical Station, a massive orbital facility that served as the heart of their healthcare system. She stood in its control center, surrounded by Vorxian medical administrators, whose third eyes tracked her every movement, with a mixture of resentment and newfound respect. "The final security protocols have been updated," she informed them, reviewing the diagnostic screens. "Your systems will return to full functionality in approximately 3 minutes." "And the human surveillance protocols, will they remain?" asked the senior Vorxian administrator, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. "They're not surveillance, Director Vexakar. They're ethical compliance monitors. And yes, they will remain active as specified in the treaty you signed." Park's tone was professional, neither triumphant nor apologetic. "Consider them preventative medicine." The Vorxian struggled visibly with his response. Finally, he said, "The humans have made their point with considerable effectiveness. But understand this, the Imperium does not forget." Park met his three-eyed gaze steadily. Neither does Earth, which is why these measures are necessary. She tapped a final sequence into the control panel, and the facility's systems began coming back online properly. Status indicators shifted from red to green as functionality returned. The Vorxian medical staff surged into action, attending to patients whose treatments had been delayed. Our medical teams will remain on standby for the next 72 hours to address any transition issues, Park told the director. After that, the Galactic Medical Ethics Observers will be your primary points of contact. As she prepared to depart, the director spoke again. Commander Park, one question, if I may. Of course. Your species had the capability to disable our entire medical infrastructure without harming a single patient. You could have used similar technology for military purposes with devastating effect. Why limit yourselves to this proportional response? Park considered him thoughtfully. Because we're doctors, First Director Vexcar. We had the capability to do far worse, but not the inclination. That's something I hope your people come to understand. 6 months later, the USHS Aegis was relaunched in a ceremony attended by representatives from across the galaxy. The rebuilt hospital ship was largely identical to its predecessor, with one significant difference: its defensive capabilities had been substantially enhanced, with what the official specifications described merely as preventative measures. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, had ratified a series of amendments to interstellar law regarding medical neutrality. The most notable addition stated that any attack on a medical vessel would automatically trigger a comprehensive medical audit by Earth's specialized response teams, a bureaucratic euphemism that now carried terrifying implications throughout the galaxy. Commander Elena Park stood on the observation deck of Esculapia Station, once more watching as the Aegis prepared for its first mission since the attack. Dr. Rao joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. The Tellurian epidemic, he asked, handing her one of the cups. Yes, their government requested us specifically. Park took a sip and nodded appreciatively. Good coffee. I've been practicing my brewing technique. Figured it's an important human skill. Rao glanced at a notification on his tablet. By the way, the quarterly compliance report just came in from the Vorxian medical fleet. Certified compliant on all protocols. Excellent. Schedule their next review for 1 galactic decade from today. That far out, the treaty specifies annual reviews. Park smiled slightly. Trust but verify, Dr. Rao. The Vorxians have learned their lesson for now, but bureaucratic vigilance is eternal. As the Aegis gracefully maneuvered away from the station, its iridescent hull, catching the starlight, Park reflected on how the galaxy had changed. The humans had arrived in interstellar society as medical innovators, then proven themselves bureaucratic warriors of unparalleled effectiveness. Both reputations would serve them well in the complex politics of galactic civilization. Commander Rao said suddenly, I've been meaning to ask. During Operation Scalpel, there was a moment when the Vorxian life support systems were under our control. Their patients were completely vulnerable. Was there ever any discussion of— No, Park interrupted firmly. Not for a moment. Because it would have been wrong. Because we're better than that. Park turned from the window to face him. The Vorxians attacked a hospital ship because they saw medical capability as just another weapon. We responded by using our medical expertise in a way that proved our point without compromising our principles. And if they try again— Park's expression hardened momentarily. Then they'll discover that our second treatment would be considerably less comfortable than the first. But I suspect they're fast learners. She raised her coffee cup slightly. To the Aegis and her mission. Rao touched his cup to hers. To healing the galaxy, one emergency at a time. As they watched the hospital ship vanish into its wormhole, Park received a new notification on her secure channel, a routine update from the Galactic Medical Ethics Observers, stationed throughout Vorxian space. All was well. All was compliant. All was being documented in triplicate. Just as it should be. In her office later that day, Commander Park reviewed the latest deployment schedules for Earth's expanding medical fleet. Humanity had emerged from the Vorxian crisis, with enhanced standing in the Galactic Council and unprecedented authority over interstellar medical protocols. Their reputation for bureaucratic ruthlessness balanced perfectly with their genuine commitment to healing, creating a uniquely human duality that other species found both reassuring and slightly terrifying. She signed off on the last report and leaned back in her chair, allowing herself a moment of reflection. The newly established deterrent was already working. 3 minor border conflicts had deliberately avoided targeting medical facilities, with commanders specifically citing compliance concerns and administrative aversion in their tactical directives. Park smiled slightly at the phrasing. Humans had discovered something the Vorxians and many other species had failed to recognize. True power didn't always come from weapons or territory or resources. Sometimes it came from paperwork, from protocols, from the inexorable machinery of bureaucracy turned to righteous purpose. As if on cue, her assistant delivered yet another stack of forms requiring her signature requisitions for the ongoing Tellurian mission personnel transfers for the medical training program on New Geneva, and preliminary approval for a xenopathology conference next quarter. Park reached for her coffee, found the cup empty, and promptly ordered another. The work of healing the galaxy continued one signature at a time. The stars outside her window seemed particularly bright tonight, as if affirming the path humanity had chosen, among them, not as conquerors or subjugators, but as healers who had proven they could not be trifled with, who had shown that even mercy could be wielded with precision, and who always had the paperwork to prove it.